Chris Castro, co-founder and executive director of Ideas for Us. Mr. Castro is an emerging social ecopreneur with a passion for advancing the transition to the clean energy economy and incorporating sustainability around the world. During his studies at the University of Central Florida, Mr. Castro co-founded an environmental movement called Ideas, an acronym for Intellectual Decisions on Environmental Awareness Solutions. And through his nonprofit, Ideas for Us, continues to work with a network of youth leaders and green professionals around the world to facilitate positive environmental change and sustainability. In 2012, Mr. Castro also partnered with professionals to create an energy efficiency startup, Citizen Energy, that is helping to incorporate sustainability practices into our buildings throughout Florida. Mr. Castro has received numerous awards recognizing his effort as a humanitarian, entrepreneur, and steward of the environment, including the prestigious Champions of Change honorable mention from the White House and Obama administration in 2011. His lecture topic today is New Hope for a New Generation, how youth are addressing climate change issues through collective action to advance the green economy. Please, a big hand for Mr. Castro.
Pleasure. Thank you. I actually have two of my colleagues here who are going to be joining me in this presentation. Julian Belilti, who is our marketing director for Citizen Energy. Okay, cool. And Christopher Stampar, both who have been incredibly integral in both of the organizations that we're going to be talking about today. I'll be fine. Cool. Thank you. So first off, I really want to thank ICD directors and team for giving us this incredible opportunity to come here. Not only is it my first time in Germany, but it's my first time in Europe, and to actually come here and spread some of our best practices and solutions with you all is an incredible opportunity. Today, really what we want to focus on is building off of the momentum from the discussions that we've heard over the past couple of days, and talk about some of the pragmatic, tangible solutions that youth can implement in our communities and on our college campuses across the world to advance sustainability and environmental awareness. And you know, over the years, what we're trying to do is show you all this model for youth education, engagement, and empowerment through our nonprofit, Ideas for Us, and how we're addressing climate change issues by advancing the clean energy economy through our company, Citizen Energy. So we're going to kind of go through a couple of these models. Obviously, we're starting to see that youth are, rising, and they're rising to the challenges that a lot of us are facing. There are many youth entrepreneurs everywhere from the age of 12 all the way up to, even 30, where, we see and understand the need for partnerships, for collaboration, for building our networks, right? And this is a critical component for us to work together, to share resources and best practices. And what we're seeing is that this model of social entrepreneurship, right, is becoming the next economy for the 21st century. The way that we can look towards a challenge within our community and address it by literally creating a business and making an economic model out of it. It's social entrepreneurship. So obviously we have many global challenges we've touched on this entire conference. Everything from the economic downfall, the conflict of war, obviously corporate corruption, and these are kind of cause and effects that are leading to a lot of these global climatic problems, right? Climate change, resource depletion, sea level rising, and even desertification. And what we're starting to see is the lack of education and awareness in this is a critical component. It's a critical reason why we're still dealing with these challenges even today. So back in 2008, when I was an undergrad, me and a really good friend of mine, his name's Hank Harding, kind of gathered a dedicated group of students on our university. And we created a student organization called Ideas, Intellectual Decisions on Environmental Awareness Solutions. And our goal here was basically to advance sustainability and environmental awareness through action. How can we create projects and initiatives that students can take ownership of, that can funnel their passions in, and we can actually begin to solve a lot of these major critical problems that we're facing. And so we began to develop that. Our first initiative was literally an Adopt a Lake program. We literally began to clean up a lake on a bi-weekly basis. And what happened is ideas turned into this hub for innovators, for thinkers, and for aspiring leaders looking to turn their ideas into solutions that can address these challenges that we're facing.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you everyone for having me here. It's a really big honor. So we want to talk a little bit here about the ideas chapters that we've created over the past 4.5 years. So as Chris mentioned, this first chapter came along in 2008 at the University of Central Florida. But very quickly after that, we rapidly expanded to over 25 different chapters throughout the continental United States in 7 different states. The first being at Penn State University up in the Northeast. And what's also important to note is that we actually expanded just beyond the college campus and have actually developed several high school and middle school chapters. So we encompass K through 12 in the United States. And then some places in the US as well as internationally, as we'll see, we've also been developing a community-based approach as well. So next one, here we go. So this is our global movement, and this is where I spend most of my time. I'm actually the international director for ideas, a role that I came into about a year ago, and this is where we've been seeing a lot of our most recent successes. So when I came on about a year ago, we had about 5 international chapters, and since then that's expanded to 18 to 20 of them now on almost every continent. This really started when I got involved with the United Nations. Last April, I was honored with the opportunity to actually address the United Nations headquarters on the request of the government of Bhutan. And at the same time that I was doing this, unknowing to me, Chris had actually registered our organization to apply for official accreditation to the United Nations. And briefly after that, we actually got accepted, one of only 800 NGOs in the entire world that was granted official accreditation to the United Nations. So this actually provided us the opportunity for myself, Chris, my younger brother, and one of our other board directors to travel to Rio de Janeiro for the Rio Plus 20 event where I spoke and addressed a group on youth empowerment and sustainable development there. So this involvement in the United Nations that also involved Stockholm, the conference in Bhutan, here in Rio as well, really is what motivated the international expansion that we've been seeing, hanging out with young kids like we do here, making new friends, talking about the things that we want to work on and what we want to change in the world is what has led to this really rapid expansion of these chapters internationally. So I'll meet these friends and the next thing you know, we're emailing and talking on Facebook a couple months later to the point where we've got chapters everywhere from Cambodia and Nepal to Uganda, Nigeria, Ghana, Colombia, all over the world. Here's a couple that we wanted to highlight in particular. Africa, I think by far right now is our most active sort of region outside of the United States that's been doing some really, really tremendous work. In the upper left corner and the bottom right corner, you can see our friend Jamal Musa from the Ghana Youth Climate Coalition, who's actually been taking some of the concepts from our model with ideas and implementing that both in Accra, Kumasi, and expanding into the northern regions of Ghana to talk to literally hundreds and hundreds of students about climate change, starting to educate them, raise awareness, and actually directly implement a lot of these programs that we've been working on. Uganda is our other big chapter. We actually just sort of randomly got invited by some friends there to start working together, and they have just taken off. I mean, we literally cannot keep up with them. They're hitting me up on Facebook every 5 minutes to work on some new project, and they actually have 5 chapters now just within Uganda at different universities for their projects. And one of the first ideas that they hosted was a big soccer competition for one of their local communities, and actually had over 700 participants from their community come out to talk about ideas, to talk about environmental awareness, and to gather around sports as a motivating factor to get people involved. And so they've been really running wild with this. We actually have something here to show you, having gotten to know you, some of you guys a little bit better. I think you'll particularly appreciate this. We've always been a big fan of incorporating art and music and culture into the work that we do. So we weren't really expecting this, but about a week ago, our Ugandan leader messaged me and told me that he decided to start working with a local hip hop artist to create songs to air on the local radio and in the schools about ideas. And so we actually have a clip here of something that they produced.
Yay. No.
Clicking the arrow.
Yeah, it's Sorry about this. Hold on.
Ideas for Uganda. Ideas for Uganda. Ideas for Uganda. A youth-led movement through environmental sustainability, water and food, and sharing ideas.
Nice.
Ideas for Uganda. Ideas for Uganda. A youth-led movement.
Well, we're going to move forward.
Yeah, no,
Unfortunately.
that's right. Well, we can show you guys later that portion of it. But one of the other things that I want to highlight with this international work, and one of the reasons that we were so excited to be involved with the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy, is that this work internationally is in fact cultural diplomacy in action. You know, going out with these kids, you know, to grab a drink like we did here after work and talk and hang out, you know, that's experience, that's sharing, you know.
Through environmental sustainability, water and food, and sharing ideas. Share we love to keep our environment clean. Ideas for Uganda, yeah. Join Ideas for Uganda.
Building relationships, and in fact, that actually constructs what we see as a conduit for action, for actually implementing these projects and achieving the real world solutions that we've all sort of been looking for, particularly here at this conference and just on a daily basis.
Awesome. So, you know, in addressing sustainability, oftentimes the word is incredibly ambiguous, and oftentimes we can't connect what sustainability actually is. We understand the triple bottom line and the social, environmental, and economic impacts of a business world, but what actually can we focus on? And so when we were doing our K through 12 programs, going into middle schools and teaching students about sustainability, we saw that the term was going over their heads when we were talking about the triple bottom line. And what we ended up doing is basically consolidating 5 of the major topics that are incorporated within environmental sustainability. We call them the 5 pillars, and that's energy, water, food, waste, and ecology. And within each one of these pillars, there's an incredible amount of potential for us to address them. What we tried to do is compartmentalize these, you know, incredibly ambiguous terms and put them in very simply so that people can actually tangibly get them. And so most of our initiatives that we're going to go through now are focused on these 5 topics, and it's a major critical component of it. Before we actually get into the model of ideas and our effective organizing tactics, I want to talk about kind of an interesting concept. In October of 2012, I gave a TED Talk, and it was about biomimicry in organizing. And my concept was, how can we look towards nature and take inspiration from the natural world and incorporate these concepts in our organizations so that we can turn them into living organisms? How is that possible? How is, in 4.5 years, without any funding whatsoever, how has ideas grown to countries around the world and to chapters across the United States? And oftentimes I get that question. And when it was sinking in, I was trying to figure out, you know, really what those terms were. And we saw that there were 4 critical components within ideas that we've incorporated that allowed us to get to this point. One, we know that biodiversity, right, is how healthy an ecosystem is, right? And what we were noticing is that obviously in the natural world, the more biologically diverse, the better the chances are of survival for species in general. And what we've done is incorporated this concept of biodiversity throughout our initiatives, as well as throughout the audience in which we're trying to engage, the multi-generations of people, and not just focusing in on the elderly or the adults or the youth. Really, it's about a collaboration amongst all of them. Secondly, we looked at this kind of term, replication. And I was comparing the difference between viral and bacterial replication. But what we've done is used ideas as a hub at a university. And the universities act as our host, right? Like a virus spreads through a host. And these universities provide our chapters with the resources needed to thrive as an effective organization. The funding, the professors, the expertise, right? All of those are a perfect environment to incubate new concepts, new ideas. We also saw that symbiosis in the form of mutualism is incredibly important. And that's where the partnerships and collaborations come into play, especially in the NGO world, right? Where we've literally partnered with over 60 different nonprofits and NGOs around the world in order to partner up on different campaigns, initiatives, in order to work together in order to achieve our common goal. And so we saw that mutualism is an incredibly important topic. And finally, we've taken this C-star model. And what I did is compared it to kind of a spider. The difference between a spider and a sea star. If you cut off the head of a spider, it dies immediately, right? But if you cut off the leg of a sea star, it not only regrows that new leg, but that leg that's been cut off can regrow an entirely new sea star. And so it's a decentralized model of organizing. And so we saw that these 4 concepts were integral to the reason why Ideas is where we are today.
So how does this movement and growth really work exactly? The first step to start an Ideas chapter begins with empowering dedicated leaders. We've gathered passionate leaders from different campuses and communities and had them develop and implement social best practices that can really spread all over the different local chapters. These dedicated leaders are really our social anchors, and without them, Ideas really can't exist. So we've established a model and to develop and pollinate these solutions, and this model is called Innovations Think Tank. And we've gathered people like us with diverse fields of study to solve local issues through gathering social innovations. We focus on one topic from the 5 pillars of sustainability that Chris mentioned previously, and we create collaborative breakouts, so different groups, and we make sure that they stick to the triple bottom line, which includes helping the environment, helping our society, and at the end, helping the economy. We also use a form of divergent thinking, which is a thought process used to generate creative ideas through the exploring several different possibilities. Now, we are looking for the wildest and craziest ideas. It is easier to make a wild idea into a reality rather than making a basic idea wild.
And Julian actually ended up, he was a passionate student at the UCF chapter who ended up creating this initiative. He saw an opportunity, a niche that wasn't being filled in our organization, and that was the formal model of how we come up with new ideas. And so this model of Innovations Think Tank now spreads across all of our chapters, and it becomes the first initiative they do each semester to figure out what are the goals of our semester, what type of projects are we going to look to implement. Right, and so this is a critical component. It's actually step 2 of how we actually organize ideas. The third step actually goes into the actual solutions that we come out with, right? And what we've broken down is 3 kind of pillars of those: research, action, and awareness. Within research, we've done incredible projects such as the Green Waves Music and Arts Festival. Over here on the left, you actually see a piezoelectric floor. We brought out 7,000 students to our university and had a sustainable carnival and brought out incredible artists, electric dance music, a number of local artists as well. And this floor here basically converts our dancing into electricity. We were able to power 250 iPhones from the floor that was created right here in a 4-hour period of dancing, right? We've also done things such as energy competitions. We call them kilowatt, where students compete in their dorms to reduce energy by the greatest amounts. We've done research in algae biofuels and actually converted algae into fuel properties. And finally, we've innovated kind of these new strategies. This is called the solar dock umbrella, and it's something that our university chapters are now trying to bring to their campuses. But it's a umbrella table where students can go outside and actually charge their electronics completely from solar. And at the bottom we have, battery storage and inverter and all that jazz. But the overall concept is we're raising awareness and at the same time getting people outside, getting them to plug in and use renewable energy to make it happen. And not only that, it's a kind of a beautiful piece as well. So that was kind of research. What's happening here? There it is. Cool. So that was research. The second type of major initiatives is action. Obviously, focusing in on national, regional, and even international programs, where we've done everything from ecosystem cleanups, very simple programs, all the way up to restorations, where we turn ponds into actual native wetlands, right? We turn these man-made ponds into natural wetlands to reduce the amount of fertilizers and chemicals that we use to abate eutrophication. So we've done a lot of these action-based initiatives where people are getting involved, and unfortunately we don't have the actual sound working.
On Friday the 22nd, in conjunction with the Green Schools National Conference, we're hosting a pre-conference service learning project at Howard Park from 12:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. And what we'll be doing is continuing the Imagining Howard Park project that was started back in mid-2000
where we can actually show how
by
humans, through our
different
development and
community
evolution, have impacted
partners,
the environment.
and we'll be
So
continuing
we
that
right side of the
project
garden, we had an
towards
incredible
the
amount of
southern part of the
diversity
park.
and various different flowers and various different species. As you went inch towards the left, you actually saw
Imagining
very
Howard
long
Park was basically
there's
a project
invasives actually
that
introduced. And
engaged
so
the
students
community
were able to
in
see that
revamping
through
Howard
our
Park,
impacts on the native
and what they did was
we
they appealed
actually,
to an artist named Michael Singer, so they brought him in, and he envisioned basically kind of like an ecological vision for the park.
So that was a little bit about the Howard Impact Project there. Finally, the last kind of critical action project is awareness initiatives, right? We've seen that one of the major disconnects is our understanding of the masses, all right? Obviously, us in this conference, we understand climate change, we understand sustainability and some of the challenges, but the majority of the people out there don't. And so when we were creating these projects, our goal was to get out to the masses, was to create initiatives that were creative and that brought together multi-generations to understand really what it is and really the types of things we need to do to move forward effectively. So we've done everything from tea totes up here at the top right, where we actually use solar to convert t-shirts into reusable tote bags and reduce the amount of plastic pollution. We've done bike awareness events where we actually get out there and promote alternative forms of transportation on our campus. And obviously the wonderful 350.org, which I'm sure you all are well aware of, but we're a founding partner of 350. We've been working with them since their inception, and we use our groups to help them in catalyzing these action and awareness initiatives that they do. So research, action, and awareness are kind of those three critical components there.
So there's a couple of things that we're interested in sharing with our different chapters around the world. One being resources and one being experiences. So for the last 4.5 years, we've mostly focused on the resources we've been able to develop. And that is from all of these action, awareness, and research projects. After these are completed, what we do is compile all this information, the experiences that we had with it, into toolkits of various different sort of media outlets and forms that we can widely distribute to all of our chapters. Most of this is actually done through social media. We do most of our work on Facebook, where we have close to 11,000 people now interacting with us and sharing all of this material. So we're very much interested in sort of moving this information from one particular area and sharing that data and sharing those personal experiences to make it effective and be able to implement that in other areas. The experience side of that, which we're now working on, and I forgot to mention earlier, is with the United Nations. Now that we have this accreditation, we actually want to take that data that we share with kids and then actually accredit them. Now that we're accredited to the United Nations, we can bring students, like any of you in the audience or anybody that's a member of IDEAS, to these real live UN conferences to actually participate and directly engage with these governments. And so that's part of the experiential-based sharing that we're moving into from the resource-based sharing. And the next step of that is essentially social incubation. So how do we take these small level projects on campuses and create a bigger impact out of them? So what we've essentially done is use IDEAS as a method for social incubation for social entrepreneurship and businesses. These are just a couple of the main examples that have come out of actual for-profit and nonprofit companies that have come out and are based primarily in the United States. One being the Agrarian Land and Pond Project, where in Central Florida we're actually implementing action by taking local pond systems and restoring them to full watersheds, completely restoring them to their original natural habitat. Another being Citizen Energy, which is our energy efficiency project that Chris is going to detail, and Ideas for Policy that's really being formulated right now in Vermont at the Environmental Law School, where we're having students actually directly engage with the governor, with our senators in Congress, to directly influence policy and decision making in the governmental processes.
So Citizen Energy, and this is kind of the second half where we transition to what we're doing to address climate change through advancing the clean energy economy. When I was also an undergrad, I got a position with the U.S. Department of Energy, and I got to work in their Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. They called it EERE. And within EERE, I worked in a number of different renewable energy offices, right? Hydro, wind, solar, biomass, and got to see at the national level what the perspective was. So really quickly, what we're trying to address here is what is it going to take to switch from the energy that built our world to the energy that's going to shape our future? And that's the critical question that a lot of us are asking now. And me, having that experience at DOE, I saw that this future of our energy in the 21st century is truly what we need to start focusing on to address. Here's an incredible map, and you can't really see it because of the lights, but it's a world map, and it's showing our population around the world. And when we overlay electricity on top of this population, we notice that obviously there's huge amounts of consumption in the United States, but there are areas in Africa, in India, and in China that still have an incredible amount of population that don't. In fact, 1.4 billion people around the world don't have access to electricity every single day. 1.4 billion. That's nearly 1 in 7. And so there's obviously a huge need and a huge demand, because by 2020, it's projected that India and China will have over 600 million people entering their middle class. We were just speaking about this yesterday. That's 2 United States that are going to start consuming resources the way we do today. So what is it going to take to switch that? How are we going to? Here's a quick map, again, showing that the United States, unfortunately, we're 4.6% of the population around the world, but we're consuming over 20% of the world's energy consumption. And so there's obviously a huge gap here. Nearly 3 or 4 planets are being used as far as the resources needed. And if everybody consumed the way we did, we wouldn't be able to make it.
Okay, so as you can see, our energy issues today really surround supply and demand. And when you can start with supply, the sources such as coal are implemented within these power plants and generate electricity for our built environment and our consumption, which is our demand. And from there, that is actually creating all of the natural disasters, as you guys know, we're facing all around the world.
And also, there's unconventional sources of fuel now. We just mentioned fracking, hydraulic fracturing, which I have my opinions that I won't talk about, as well as Canadian tar sands, which is now an incredibly horrible process right now that we're starting to see as potentially the energy independence of the United States, quote unquote. And unfortunately, we're seeing that this vicious cycle is not ending in sight unless we do something about it.
So obviously there's a nexus between energy consumption and climate change. And as you can see on the spaghetti chart, energy consumption is a huge majority of our CO2 emissions. And we definitely have to make this a priority. So why buildings? Now think of a power plant nearby. 70%, over 70% of that electricity goes to commercial building sectors. So that's that has huge implications on our CO2 emissions, as you can see here, which is nearly 40%. Now therefore, the built environment is a huge sector that we need to focus on.
So we created Citizen Energy, and our goal was to help commercial buildings to incorporate energy efficiency and adopt energy efficiency and renewable energy technologies, and at the same time develop the next generation of clean energy workforce, right? Technicians and engineers that are needed in order for us to transition. And so this is kind of a diagram that we're going to briefly go through each one of these pillars really quickly of what this one-stop shop entails. First, obviously, is this disconnect of community. Most building owners and managers and even people are disconnected from our energy. And so what we try to do is host energy workshops as well as community competitions to raise awareness about energy consumption. We did this incredible program called Kilowatt, as mentioned before, where we actually had building owners pledge to save energy 30% in 3 years. And over 1,900 buildings actually applied and actually pledged to save energy. And so through this and community canvassing, we're able to bring kind of that culture and the awareness in the community so that we can go out and assist them. Workforce development.
So we work with colleges and universities to create these energy efficiency technicians through benchmark academies. Now these benchmark academies are split within 3 levels. Level 1, which is education and outreach, which includes basics of building science, which we train the students on. Then we have energy specialists, which are more focused on energy assessments and energy audits. And then third, we have energy professionals, which are more of our engineers who are, I guess, more specifically skilled in that direction. Now overall, This is a career development program for students from diverse fields of studies, not just engineers. And that has been an issue that we've been facing for a while now. Now, according to this graph, as you guys know, 2012 has been a very hot year. Month after, okay, well, I guess, okay. So our energy challenges that we're focusing on focus more on demand side. And as you know, 30% of the electricity that, 30% of electricity buildings actually are wasting. And this can save businesses $290 billion annually if they solve this problem. Now, in order for us to actually hit this $290 billion, we need to generate 1.3 million jobs. Now, the problem is that 3.7% of universities and colleges actually offer degrees that develop these energy efficiency technicians that develop jobs for these energy efficiency technicians. And that's where we actually come in.
All right, so we'll sort of wrap you up here really quickly, but just to give you a very quick overview of the actual process of what this company is doing. Me and Chris actually conducted one of these assessments just a week and a half ago in my hometown. And basically we start with an Energy Star benchmarking where we gather basic utility data and usage data of the building, such as number of employees and computers, et cetera, to get basically a miles per gallon rating. So we input this into some Environmental Protection Agency designed software called Energy Star that basically rates your building on a scale of 0 to 100 against tens of thousands of other buildings across the country, so you have an idea of how efficient you are compared to other buildings. We then go through and do a full walkthrough of the building, assessing lighting and the different components, and a breakdown of every thing in the building that's potentially hogging energy, so we can identify sources of savings. The technical audit is looking at the types of actual upgrades that we can do. So can you convert to LEDs? Can you convert to different types of fluorescent bulbs? What kind of capital retrofits like solar panels can you install? And then an investment grade audit, which actually details the financing of how we actually go about implementing these particular energy solutions.
So there's a number of other slides, and I know that we have to end now. But overall, what we're again trying to do is, create a different model for energy solutions and energy services within the built environment. And it's shown to be proven that things are very successful at this point. We're doing a number of energy assessments. We've done a couple of implementations of projects, and one finally is. This last one, last year, we actually won a $645,000 grant to install 107 kilowatts of solar PV on our campus. And this was something that, through our company, we helped to outsource a utility rebate, right? A program that utilities was giving. We wrote the grant, we worked with the university, we actually got students to completely install the entire program, and that's the full array that we actually see now. It's powering the first net zero energy building at our university. And we're working with a number of other universities now to implement this exact same thing. So in closing, and I'm gonna stop here, I think some takeaways for us. One is really youth are dependent about the hope of our future. And in my opinion, youth isn't determined by age whatsoever. It's determined by passion and determination. It has nothing to do with how old you are. And I think that youth are the future of what we're going to. With both ideas and citizen energy, these concepts have had some underlining kind of foundations. And that's, we think big, start small, and scale fast. And for anybody out there who's interested in starting a program or a new initiative, keep that in mind. Think as big as you possibly can. How big can this movement be? You start small and incubate at a single university or wherever you want to be, and you scale fast, and you scale that model to make more of an impact. And finally, we all have to remember that we're 50% of the population of those under 30 around the world, but we're 100% of the future. And we all need to understand that and acknowledge that, because it's critically important, not only for us, but for the next generations to come. So again, thank you very much. Sorry for going a little bit over time, but we really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all.